This video has been very kindly sponsored today by ExpressVPN, a virtual private network service that gives you complete protection whenever browsing public Wi-Fi in hotels, cafes, airports, and keeps all your sensitive information like credit card numbers utterly safe from any hacking attempts that may occur. Please stay tuned until before the outtakes of this video to find out more, and if you want to support the channel in an extra way, check the description and get started right now.
Oh my god, is that flubber on VHS? Well, cutting plastic's boring. Is there a game where I can cut flesh instead?
Yes, there is. This is the new game from the geniuses at Fromsoftware, most famous for their work on Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, and Bloodborne. And where all these previous games in their lineup have been heavily Western inspired despite being Japanese developed, this game takes the team back to their roots and focuses entirely on Japanese locations, mysticism, and overall culture, even going as far as to set the default speaking language of the game to native Japanese with English subtitles for the intended experience. I mean, god, it's so Japanese, the title alone is difficult to say. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice.
Now, I've heard a lot of people call this game hard, so I'm going to play it safe today and start by switching the default language from Japanese to English. Not to offend any Japanese people out there, but because I know FromSoft and they like to have boss battles that like to talk during the middle of their fights, and if someone is going to do something like this, "You will not take this couple's head," then I'd love to be able to not focus on subtitles when my life is on the line. That's far from a bad thing though, because in typical FromSoft style, the English voice acting is superb, so it's more down to preference than anything.
The game opens up with a brief backstory on the world you'll be fighting your way through, and then a message being dropped towards you from the roof of your prison.
I see what you did.
And this message was delivered to a shinobi warrior known as Wolf. Real name, Mr. Sekiro, who a few years ago was tasked with protecting a master he was assigned to by his adopted father, Owl. Yet he totally failed his one job and got himself stuck in a big hole. After climbing your way out of the big hole and stealthing your way to a big building, you find your master, who is a child, who proceeds to give us our mission and basically demand us to rescue him. Oh god, here we go. Now I can tell you from first-hand experience that pledging your undying allegiance to a kid and obeying every order they throw at you is a terrible idea, so this can only go very badly.
Shinobi Caddy, I present you with your sword, Pepper's Pigus.
Master, thank you.
Now I need you to do something for me.
Anything, Master. What is my task?
I need you to stay there while I shoot you.
Of course, Master. Wait, what?
Stay there and I can shoot you.
Master, are you sure about this?
Yeah, I'm bored.
Master?
Okay, to be fair, Master Kuro is actually a solid character, especially for a kid, and seeing how he deals with people and situations as somebody so young whenever you find those glowing remnants around the world adds a lot to his personality. But to start with, that's how he's introduced.
Oi, ninja, save me!
Okay. You also discover from eavesdropping on enemies that there's a guy called General Genichiro who is responsible for all of this mess and who you need to save your little master from. So off we go, child. We're like Big Cook, Little Cook.
Little Cook's adventures in the big world. Let me see.
We'll start by having a big wiggle right here.
I am aware people are calling this game hard all over the internet, but really? Come on, guys. Sekiro is I mean, in Souls and Bloodborne, you have a stamina bar even. You don't have that in Sekiro, so you can just keep on attacking to your heart's content. Yeah, this game's a piece of cake. That was one of the first enemies.
Okay, don't blame me, it wasn't my fault. Sekiro was taking me off guard quite a lot. For a FromSoft game, it's weird to not have a stamina bar at the top left, and I do keep looking up there to see that it isn't there. It's weird to also focus the gameplay entirely about parrying and posture instead of just basic dodge timing and counter-attacking. And it's even weirder to see every character actually move their mouths.
I had a feeling you'd understand. I did.
Two strangers in strange circumstances.
They should always be mannequins, not actual people. So I finally get past the first bastard that gave me trouble, and we meet up in a gorgeous epic ninja battle flowery field with Lord Greenwich Meantime. I've heard all about him.
I'm sure Lord Genichiro has his reasons.
Once? Come on, mate, I'm ready for you. How dare you attack our people and lock up my master? And my hand's been cut off.
Well, that didn't take very long.
Master Kuro gets abducted and moved again. Wolf passes out, and then we wake up sometime later with a brand new robot hand in the time of the 16th century. The one who gave us this hand is called the Sculptor, who... Oh no!
Your eyes. The eyes of a wolf who has failed in his duties.
Have you asked him to try laxatives?
And he explains that this arm is pretty damn special since it not only can aid you in combat by building and equipping different sub-weapons to it, but also allows you to all over the place for some of the fastest and slickest exploration FromSoft have done to date, and also gives you multiple opportunities to scout locations, skip enemy hordes, approach enemies from different directions, and one-hit kill from above unless it's a mini-boss. This kind of gameplay is something only ever dreamed about in Souls games, aside from those few instances where you can visit a few areas in different directions when retreading, drop attack from heights even though that doesn't always reliably work, and perform backstabs or charge attacks on the rare occasion enemies don't face you when you're coming from a specific direction. In Sekiro you can even swim in deep bodies of water, opening you up to even more hidden areas, important NPC quests, shortcuts and alternate routes so that you can get the upper hand on a group further down the line. And that's why it's so easy.
In fact, do you want to know the hardest part of this game? Fishing!
I swear to God, I was searching for these magical scales to give to this smelly old wrinkle hiding in a pot, but in order to do that I needed to catch some fish, and no matter what I did or what items I used, I was never ever able to get this one fish without blind luck on my side. Not joking, from the second I started trying to catch this one fish until the second that I managed to actually kill it, it took me 21 minutes.
Who'd have thought the creators of Dark Souls and Bloodborne would go on to create the hardest fishing simulator of all time?
This kind of open-ended play hasn't yet been explored for a FromSoft game, and yeah, from what I've played, this isn't quite as interconnected as a world like Dark Souls 1 is exactly. Not helping matters being the fact that you can warp to any checkpoint right from the beginning of the game, kind of killing the need to actually loop back around through shortcuts to other areas. But with the grapple hand, the amount of ways you can approach situations and even explore high and low to find secret items and important NPCs can't be ignored. And this makes the level design itself fantastic. A lot of what you do is pretty railroaded down singular paths, gated off by bigger enemies and mini-bosses, but in terms of tiny side pockets to hidden items and weapons, and even huge branching routes towards totally optional other areas close to where your checkpoints are, this is where the game shines when combining the main combat and exploration together. And once you start finding brand new prosthetic arm weapons to switch between for combat encounters, or very rare upgrade materials to make the arm even better in fights, that's when it all starts to feel even more rewarding.
Incidentally, the way that the on-screen grappling command gets fuller as you get closer to it so you know exactly when you're allowed to actually grapple is a brilliant touch. Not like a Michael Jackson touch.
The world doesn't aim to suck you in with its atmosphere and make you feel constantly oppressed as much as it aims to give you near endless vertical and horizontal possibilities for multiple branching paths and even great reasons to go back to previous areas to get the most use out of them and show you how they can connect to current areas. So in that sense it can feel like Dark Souls 1, but just not as much as Dark Souls 1. Just for an example, there was one instance for me where I got myself a key for some pretty sweet treasure, but that involved me having to go back to the start of the game, which yeah, kinda sucks, right? Well, no, because after a certain point of the game, I was naturally exploring and then I got that click, that aha moment, when I realised I was on the highest point of the cliff that I could only see but never reach at the very start of the game. And so with my grapple hand in tow, I just jumped right back down and flew across the sky to get my treasure, along with getting to fight an optional mini-boss that just appeared there after I left earlier, guarding even more treasure. And after heading back to the part where I realised this path branched, there was yet another area to explore inaccessible beforehand. I'll talk more about the combat in a second, but for now I will say that stealth is a huge aspect of enjoyment to the game that doesn't only feel good but makes encounters a hell of a lot easier, since instead of the extremely difficult to nail sword deflecting combat carrying you along entirely, you can always look around, find a sneaky spot, and then one hit stealth kill what would usually be a pretty tricky engagement. But the choice is yours really, one takes more time and the other is faster but much more dangerous. However, I would recommend at least stealthing to begin with, since when getting up close to certain mobs you can even eavesdrop on their conversations before they notice you to give you hints and tips for enemy weaknesses or hidden secrets that you'll definitely appreciate.
This is also why the freedom and quickness of movement feels great, because you won't only be able to find treasures, but be able to zip around the environment and take down large groups of enemies completely without being spotted, or at least thin them out before you actually have to engage with the main combat mechanics.
My poor horse is dead.
Oh, that's sad. Say hi to your horse for me! As for the rest of the combat, well, yeah, it's easy. Okay, sorry, I can't keep this up. It's hard, okay? It's really, really hard. Not mincing words here. It feels impossible a lot of the time, especially when you're beginning, but the mechanics present are meticulous. It just requires all your concentration, time, and effort to get it right. There's no handouts here, no cheesing bull to get around. It's your reflexes versus the relentless machine that is the game's programming, and Sekiro will test you to the point of a brain hemorrhage.
The subtitle of this game may be Shadows Die Twice, but let me tell you, you will die a shit ton more than that. In fact, while we're here, I have a new title for this game, Sekiro, Caddy Dies Repeatedly.
Like any classic Souls game, especially until you learn the mechanics, you will die, often to the exact same foes. This is too much. Maybe there's something a little bit easier down here. Ooh, what's that? What? Oh no, oh come on man, I know Gex wasn't the best franchise in the world, but he didn't deserve that. You remember Nioh from a few years back? Well, that game feels like Team Ninja looked at Dark Souls, made it more Japanese and made it 3 times faster, but Sekiro feels like Fromsoftware looked right back at Nioh and went, nice job guys, in that case we can make a game just as fast and just as Japanese, but 3 times harder! No joke, the combat in this game is downright brutal and has so many intricacies and reliance on animation reading and split-second reflexes that I cannot recommend it to you if you aren't ready to learn through grueling patience and countless deaths. If Bloodborne is too fast for you, don't play this. Instead of previous FromSoft titles where slow attack animations, confidence with dodging into attacks, and occasional blocking and parrying if you felt like a cheeky chappy were king, Sekiro is built entirely around a deflecting system with posture meters for you and the enemy, and enemy attacks that can regularly kill you instantly with no chance to get away. You cannot reliably hit and dodge as easily as you'd expect like in Souls or Bloodborne. If you hold block, you can guard most attacks, but your posture meter goes up, and once it fills up, you'll stagger for a while and have a single roll away to use at the right moment to avoid being slaughtered. So to stop enemies doing that to you, why don't you hit them all the time? Well, because this is a proper sword combat game and they block your attacks just as often as you do, but can easily break from your attacks to counter you and get you into a combo if they block more than 2 or 3 consecutive attacks from yourself. So what do then? You hit guard at the moment just before their attack lands to deflect it, which not only occasionally staggers enemies but makes their posture meter go up way faster than if you were just smacking through their blocks. Plus, it looks and feels so damn cool. Once their posture is broken, you can then go in for a one-hit kill, or you can just keep chipping away until their health bar depletes, but that is nowhere near as fun as... This doesn't work all the time though, because you'll see these red attacks on occasion. Some of them are grabs that you have no choice but to avoid with a dodge or a jump, some of them are sweeps that you can deflect by jumping towards the enemy and then jumping again to kick them back, and some of them are thrust attacks that are pretty easy to sidestep, but even better can be deflected with an unlockable move by dodging into the attack to step the weapon down and then attack from the back. The bigger the enemy, the quicker their posture meter fills back up if you aren't constantly parrying them, and the harder it is to get them to stagger in the first place, requiring you to do your best to deflect attacks to save your own skin, but also open up the enemy for attacks to get their health down, and the lower their health, the easier it becomes to break their posture. And of course, like any great risk-reward system, if you play totally defensively and just dodge everything or stand back until you know you're safe, especially with mini-bosses, and eventually chip their health bar down to 0 without a broken posture one-hit kill, not only does that take a long old time, but if you mess up and die, all that time was completely wasted without you learning anything about the actual game mechanics. And you've got to love the game over screen. Death. That's all. Thanks game. I didn't realise that's what happened. I never would have guessed. There's little to no room for error here, and you need to be able to read exactly what the enemy plans to do to react accordingly and punish them right back. Spamming dodges or jumping backwards will not save you most of the time, even when trying to get away to heal from your flask that refills every time you reach a new checkpoint. You have to be fully committed to it, and sadly enough to say, get good in order to succeed. That's just how the rewarding nature of the game comes out, by overcoming this insane combat style and embracing your failures as learning curves if you carefully pay attention to each enemy that knocks you down. In Bloodborne, you can rally back and forth and trade damage since you can get some of your own health back if you're quick. In Souls, you can do parries for huge windows of damage and dodge ridiculous attacks by rolling into them since you're invincible for a while. But here, you mess up, you lose your rhythm, you die. But something that is very cool though is that when you die, depending on upgrades you unlock and how much you can refill your chances with successful combat, you can actually resurrect yourself a limited number of times before dying fully, so that's pretty cool. Throw in some unlockable new moves obtainable from getting XP from enemies, including area attacks and spinning attacks immediately after a grappling hook move, and you've got a deep and richly satisfying melee combat system that is just as satisfying as it is punishing.
But that doesn't help when this ogre keeps kicking my ass!
This guy, I'm sure, is the main reason many players will give up and decide the game is either bullshit or not for them, and I can totally see why, especially if they've played Souls games beforehand and treat it entirely like a Souls game. This guy completely wrecked me multiple times before I understood what the hell to do. Look at this! My god! What do I do? What do I do? You know that feeling when you walk into a McDonald's and order a Big Mac and the lady at the collection desk says, "Oh, hey sir, did you order a quarter pounder?" And you say, no. That's exactly how I felt for the first few hours of playing this game. I was expecting a Souls-like, so I played it like a Souls game, staying way too close, relying too heavily on dodges for attacks that ended up catching me regardless, and at least for me, this ogre was the turning point for figuring out how different Sekiro really is to play. For such an early part of the game, this ogre is totally bloody relentless, and you've had no chances to practice large enemy posture control or multiple red attack management, leading to many players panicking and, well, yeah, that. Oh my god, what the... What is that? Oh god. Oh god, no, 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 no! Not improving things is the huge punishment you get for death. In this game, you don't collect souls to spend on items and leveling up. Instead, you earn XP that accumulates over time into numbered skill points that you can then spend unlocking new abilities for attacking and health restoration. And also, unlike souls, you don't get a chance to regain your lost XP when you die. Instead, you lose half the XP you earned across your XP bar. You keep the skill points you earned, luckily, but getting more points if you keep dying to the same boss requires basically never dying or farming the same enemies over and over again until you get enough to earn a point. And even then, the game can't save you with upgrading base defense and strength like souls until you're completely untouchable. Skill points only allow you to get more abilities, with health and strength being upgraded only by beating bosses. That is one cool thing about it though, when you get more skill point abilities, the game is still hard, it just gives you way more to play with and more chances to get health back by doing the combat well, which doesn't immediately make things less punishing. And if that wasn't enough, the more you die, the more your friends start getting sick from a disease called dragon rot, and the worse that gets, your percentage of chance you have to respawn after death not losing any XP decreases significantly, and NPC quests can't continue because they're sick. If you couldn't cure the sickness and the game had a stamina bar, I'd cry.
You know, Fromsoftware are one of my favourite developers of all time, and when I heard that they were making a new game, I went into Sekiro all chirpy and wide-eyed and full of hope. But after a few hours, I now feel like a withered rose. And we all know what happens when a rose withers. The beast comes out and he's not very happy.
As far as the bosses go, well, I find them the toughest and most memorable fights in the game, and not just from their unique designs compared to regular enemies. These are the fights where you can't get by with just deflecting and countering. They have longer combos, delay their swings, throw thrusts and sweeps at you, have projectiles, use multiple status effects, barely stagger unless you know how to trip them up, and even better, usually require more than one death blow, either by breaking their posture to open them up, or by starting the fight with a one-hit kill stealth attack to knock off one part of their death strike meter. Or you can slowly and painfully whittle down their health, but like I said earlier, that is not the wisest strategy, but if you really want to try it, the option is still there. So this guy here, he keeps on kicking me in the sack, so maybe I could start the battle off a little better and stealth attack him to make things a little easier and get one of his death strike meters down. Okay, come on, come on. Come on. Gotcha! Oh wait, no, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Wait, why didn't it work? Help me, help me! It's easy. The way they're presented like regular encounters catching you completely off guard is great too. Sometimes you can guess where they are and slowly figure out a plan of attack, and other times you're just like and then they pop up out of nowhere and you go ah! And this guy here, let me tell you about this guy. He calls himself a shinobi hunter, and he bloody well lives up to his namesake, because even after starting the fight with a free stealth kill death strike bar removal, leaving me to only need to knock his posture down once instead of twice, he still whooped me over and over and over again. I swear I just could not get the timings right. I can deflect thrust attacks easily everywhere else in the game, but here he don't care about my feet. Obviously I eventually figured out how to best dodge and stagger him, but man, that learning curve. And even better, if you stealth attack him then run away or hide to try stealth attacking him again to kill him outright, he regains his death strike circles. At this point I think we should leave Master Kuro with the bad guys because they sure seem more competent than I am. But like anything, once you know how they tick, they usually aren't too bad, and I personally found that the bigger they were, the easier they were.
Wait, what was that? Shinobi execution. I've never seen that message before. Wait, what's this? I've got a memory that can upgrade my attack power? Was that a main boss of the game? But it took me 5 hours to get to it! I mean, yeah, I did a lot of the side stuff, got multiple mini-bosses, and repeatedly got my ass handed to me by this stabby toilet paper before getting to this part, but still!
I mean, I know this guy dropped one of the rarest items in the game, but does Sekiro treat every enemy with their special health bar and name as a boss in their own right? Not just mini-bosses? I don't blame them at all, and I'm not complaining, it's just not what I was expecting. But yeah, 5 hours to get my first attack power upgrade. Yeah, this may have been very naive of me to think, but I had this fantasy that I'd get this game downloaded on my PC the day it came out, I'd have my work done, start playing the game on Saturday, and be completely done by Sunday so I could start making a video about it, but piss on that. As of the time I'm writing the script, I have reached that bit of seeing Greenwich Mean Time on top of the Ashina Castle rooftops, and I was casually exploring and was not expecting to find him there, triggered a cutscene, started the fight with no healing items, and yeah, okay, thanks game. So yeah, I haven't finished it yet, but I still desperately wanted to make a video about Sekiro because of how much I'm loving it so far. So instead of making a full review of the completed game, I figured I'd spend the rest of this video length to try and help a few of you out that want to get more enjoyment out of the game but find it way too difficult. Well, that is at least if my game doesn't freeze and crash and then I lose all my progress.
With that being said, please sit back and enjoy my hints and tips to starting out in Sekiro.
Hello boys and girls, and welcome to Story Time with Daddy Caddy. But today we're not going to be reading any stories because we have to cut bitches up. Stop crying. Look, your homework was to slice your dad in the neck, and if you're not gonna do it, then I'll have to!
Lesson 1. Don't treat every basic enemy the same way. To put it simply, yeah, get practice in with deflecting and countering whenever you feel like you must, because basic enemies are the best for that. But if you find yourself getting a bit overwhelmed or losing too much health before boss encounters, take these things into account. Those scrawnier guys that don't really like two-handing weapons and have barely any armor, you can usually wail on them until their posture depletes for a very easy kill. Maybe even a one-hit kill for some enemies depending on your strength level. Snipers and arrow men, they usually have no means of defense or guarding and spend way too much time aiming at you than actually deflecting anything, so they can be taken down with 2 or 3 ninja stars from a distance, again affected by your strength level. Same with dogs, how I dealt with them is either from a distance with throwing stars or by just strafing backwards until they bit forward, missed, and then I one-shotted them in retaliation. Every basic enemy encounter has more ways to go around them than you can imagine, and not just stealthily, so do remember that. Lesson 2. Don't forget to keep going back to the safe temple whenever you find a new idol to rest at. Not only can you practice new abilities and weapons with this gross old fart, but the more you come back here, the more story events you uncover, the more NPCs you'll find coming and going, including a very useful merchant, the more you can trigger events related to health upgrades and get more info on how to make things a bit easier for yourself, and the more items you can receive from any of these people at any time. Plus, I even ended up forgetting I had upgrade materials for my prosthetic arm and items to increase my refilling health, so when talking to the characters I got a nice surprise when I realised I could upgrade them after so much time. All of these guys want to help you, so keep checking in on them, you'll be surprised what you'll get. Lesson 3. Stealth. Stealth, stealth, stealth. I figured that would have been clear from my examples shown earlier, but yes, stealth is a major aspect of the game and can save you a lot of hassle. Not just for regular enemies that give you trouble, but certain bosses too if you approach them from a particular way. You won't get them the first time like this, but you can get a 1-up on the fight by removing the need to knock their posture down for a death strike by 1, oftentimes halving the battle time in the early game if you want to take that route. Also, do consider investing skill point upgrades into stealth, like being more quiet when moving around. They aren't cheap, I know, but hot damn are they worth it. Lesson 4. Dodging isn't the only way. So dodging in this game is a little funny, and people have complained about it, which I do understand. People have often dodged perfectly only to still get hit or grabbed by bosses. But at the same time, here's the thing. The invincibility frames in the dodging might as well be nothing compared to Souls games, and personally I only ever dodged backwards to give myself space, or dodged left and right only when enemies had thin weapons with thrusts and overhead strikes that didn't track me so well. You dodge to get your body away from the attack, not dodge through it, if that makes any sense. That doesn't work at all. So whenever you swear you dodged at the right time only to be slightly teleported into a grab or something, yeah, it looks kind of tacky and cheap, but that's because you were touched even during your dodge. Your iframes are not enough to fully avoid it, and you need to use other tactics, such as sprinting and jump kicking, and these are 2 very important methods of defense that you need to get good with. I'd argue these 2 are maybe even more important than dodging aside from deflecting red thrust attacks. Examples include the ogre fight, which I had a lot of trouble with when I started, don't get me wrong, but if you try to dodge this forward lunge grab, it will not work 80% of the time without a lot of luck, because dodging backwards doesn't get you far enough back, and dodging left and right doesn't work, he's too wide. So instead, jump over him when he does that, and then jump again to kick him down, which gets his posture down and cancels the attack out. This bull here, another boss that I totally lost my shat over when I first attempted him, but by the end, I was able to get through him only getting hit 1 time, but never dodging around him since he's too big and too fast and iframes can't save you. So instead, I constantly sprinted around all of his attacks, waiting for the windows where he gears up to run the opposite direction, and then took 2 to 3 hits until he went down. It was a perfect strategy for me, and it didn't take too long to finish off. I think this is the way you're supposed to do it. You can argue if this is a good or a bad thing, but in my opinion, this makes every boss encounter especially feel totally unique and something to test yet another aspect to your control, instead of just giving you constant dodging and countering like in a Souls game, which I do love, don't get me wrong, but this is a great change up for a different kind of game, especially when I can't name you more than a handful of bosses in Nioh for how similarly they attack you and how you attack them, despite how good that game is. I'm also fully aware that getting your head around an attack button, guard button, jump button, and dodge button all in extremely quick succession during battle can get confusing, and it can kill you if you press the wrong thing at the wrong time, but that's just part of the challenge, and once you get used to it, it becomes second nature, or you can rebind the keys in the pause menu, it's up to you. Lesson 5. There's always a way around. This is kind of an extension to what I was saying earlier. If there's a boss or enemy giving you trouble and it feels slightly impossible, learn how they work, because there is always a way around them that isn't the same old basic deflecting you'd expect. For instance, the big boys. If you can't stealth kill them, single them out, dodge back from their swings because they're pretty slow, dodge attack back in to chip their health down, wait for that insane final effort attack they do after their health gets down to about half, and then they get exhausted, ready for an easy slice up from you. Shield enemies annoyed me to no end when I first started playing, but then once I realised 95% of the time, if you jump kick off of their shield, they charge after you and get tired, leaving themselves wide open for around 2 to 3 hits, the battles were practically over. Just remember to dodge left or right around the charge. Even this purple guy, this purple-plated prick, he caused me more deaths than any enemy or boss I've faced up until making this video. An absolutely insane challenge with an epic reward hiding behind that building he's guarding, so he's worth going after. But once I figured out that after about 2 strikes from me, he would counter, I then deflected that attack, leading him to do a combo, usually ending in a red sweeping attack, so I exploited that, jump kicked off of him when he did that, and voila, his posture vanished, I got him, and that felt great! I mean, I heard horror stories about Lady Butterfly on Twitter, but honestly, I got her in around 5 or 6 tries. This guy, no idea. I don't think the number of retries I took against him exists. Bosses have other tells too that always have ways around them. The fights in this sense are puzzles as much as they are reactionary. This goober over here, for instance, gave me heaps of trouble until I realised this little trick. Whenever he did a thrust attack at me and I dodge countered it, it always triggered him to either jump back or swipe at me. And whenever he did do a swipe at me, I would deflect that and he would trip up, allowing me to get about 2 hits in. Then I would dodge back, wait for the next thrust attack, whittle his health down, the posture stays low, and eventually you will just get it. How about this guy hiding in the attic? Sure, he's monstrously quick and can cut you down in less than a second, but once I realised he was a glass cannon with barely any health and posture, all I did was wait for that little white light, and as soon as I saw it, spammed the guard button to deflect all the attacks, then I attacked back, usually causing him to sweep attack, and so I jump kicked that, and the rest is history. Most of the time in Sekiro, you just need to be as quick, clever, and deadly as your enemies are, and I can't say much more than that.
Lesson 6. Don't use the coin purses, for the love of God. What are you doing? Are you insane?
Yeah, just don't use the coin purses. Since you lose so much money and XP whenever you die, yeah, keep those purses on you and only use them when you need to buy important things. Consider the money you then get from enemies as a bonus.
Lesson 7. You can farm for items if you really need to.
Personally, I never did this because I wanted to see as much of the game as possible for this video, but this is something totally doable. Farming XP I can't see as that useful unless you really want to unlock a new move, but going through corridors of enemies after popping those fortune balloons for coins and item drops can prove insanely useful for upgrade materials, healing items, and defense, posture, and attack boosts for a limited time. These items are here for a reason, so use them.
And finally, lesson 8. Use death to your advantage.
Remember I mentioned that resurrection mechanic earlier? Well, if you have a spare one to go and end up dying, you can delay the time it takes to revive, which gives enemies plenty of time to walk away back to their positions, which then allows you to stealth them to death if you got a little bit too swarmed. That's a really neat trick, innit? And also, the more you die to a particular boss, the more healing power your refillable flask gets because you were struggling on that boss, so the game does throw you a bone every so often.
Oh, and by the way, as far as story stuff goes, so far the game is great at that too. I mean, for me, it's nowhere near as enrapturing as the world and history of Dark Souls and Bloodborne in my opinion, but the characters and their motivations are all fascinating, the goal you have has a fantastic drive, dialogue is great, items add a high amount of depth to the plot, and you even get explanations for your resurrection abilities and get to explore your past for more answers, very similarly to the Artorias of the Abyss expansion in Dark Souls 1. I must also commend Fromsoftware for developing this game in the first place, because it doesn't appease the masses, it doesn't give people who love Dark Souls and Bloodborne yet another Dark Souls or Bloodborne game, it just goes out from the gate and does its own thing, and they knew that it would only appeal to a set small group of people that would really appreciate going into it and mastering every single aspect of the mechanics, and so if that isn't for you, then that's fine, it's not for you. I can definitely say it isn't for everybody. That being said, if you easily rage quit, do not go near this game. If you don't have the patience for it, if you don't want to learn the ins and outs of it, this game, like I said, is not for you. This is not Dark Souls, it's not Bloodborne, it's something totally different. But for me, I'm absolutely loving it and I'm going to continue playing it after this video airs. In conclusion, Sekiro is a video game where you can get murdered by chickens. Terrifying. Hey everybody, and thank you so much for watching today's video right until the very end. Outtakes will be on in just a second, so please stay tuned for that. But first, I'd love to give another thanks to the sponsors for this video today who have supported this channel in an amazing way, ExpressVPN. As I said earlier, ExpressVPN is an extremely useful service that I have used myself many a time in order to encrypt my data whenever using public Wi-Fi and keep all my vital payment information totally secure. And since I go to many a hotel with my job, this is a crucial bit of kit for me. Once you sign up, all you need is the app for your PC, Mac,
iPhone, Android, Linux. There's so many choices to go through. And then all you do is sign in, open up the app, press the little button there, once you've picked your server location at the bottom as well, and then you get connected. There we go, we're connected. And since it has the fastest speeds of other VPN providers, you won't think twice about hitting that button whenever you start browsing. At less than $7 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee, you can't really go wrong. And by going into the description below to the link expressvpn.com/caddy, you can get yourself a 3-month free trial of it. Yeah, free, so go and check it out right now to help support the channel. And also, thank you to all the people on screen right now from my Patreon page who have also supported the channel in an amazing way. Thank you so much, every single one of these people, and special thanks to the top tier Patreon supporters for this month. Basil, I Have a Portal Gun, Exopaz, Matthew Hubble, Mills Kahai, Brandon, Kirsten B, Cyberpunk Symphony, Nicole Ganara, Dave Marshall, Nathan Young, The Game Shed, Daniel Leon, Mitchell Reed, Gamer Mohammed 2017, and AD Thornton Smith. Thank you so much, every single one of you amazing people.
I was just looking at the back, the first thing I saw was gooey substance. Can I also point out how terrible even this box is? The film sucks. Robin Williams rocks. This film sucks. Those are supposed to be...
Yeah, I can't quite see.
Those are supposed to be the guy's glasses.
Yeah.
They've shrunk. Now, I've heard a few people call this game Sekiro.
Stay there while I shoot.
You nearly had it, you nearly had it. You nearly had it.
Then I'd love to be able to... Whoops. Then I'd love to... Ow!
And then slowly smile and look at the camera. Really slowly. Yeah, like that, yeah.
Can I do this?
If you want, yeah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't help when this ogre keeps kicking my ass! Excuse me, Doc?
What? What?
Wow.
Don't play with knives, kids. Christ.
What's hiding in Professor Brainerd's head? Oh, sorry, I keep dropping the sword. Wow. Have you ever wanted to know what flubber looks like on the inside, kids? It looks like... It looks pretty not flubbery and not gooey. It looks pretty solid and soulless and plastic and like it would... It's flubber!